It's the Weekly Wrap with your host, broadcasting legend Bruce Wolf, and his trusty sidekick, comedian Tim Slagle. And now, without further ado, Bruce Wolf.
Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap. And now it's time for my favorite part of the show, wherein, I guess, what's in Tim's background? Tim, I'm going to guess that you got your freshly minted contract from the Tenet Company. You're going to be the new Russian disinformation expert because everyone else has been indicted.
You're very close. I'm
Okay.
here in front of Trump's new campaign headquarters.
There you go. I knew it. I got it. I got it. If only they were convincing. I mean, that's the problem. And I confess that for a while, you see a story break like this, and there's just too many names being thrown at me. Come on, I'm an old guy. I just can't handle all this stuff. So I kept thinking, isn't Benny Johnson the guy who wanted to take away the Secret Service from Trump? He's a congressman. And then no, that's Benny Thompson, Emily Latella. So, but I didn't even know that this
Never
Benny
mind.
Johnson. Yeah, I didn't even know that this Benny Johnson is like a multi-millionaire YouTuber. I mean, no wonder we're just like these little podcasters out here. There's these guys out there that are making a fortune.
How do they do that? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, really. What do you got to do? I mean, we could spread disinformation with the best of them, I think. And sometimes we do, just out of plain ignorance. But yeah, I mean, actually, my favorite part of that whole story is the part where apparently somebody wanted them to use Tucker Carlson's obsequious trip to the grocery store and the subway in Moscow, and they found that was over the top. it was shilling too much, so even they wouldn't take that. So I mean that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, this
but
is
I mean,
Russian disinformation part 3. This time we're serious.
Yeah, right. I mean, what's funny is, and this comes right as Hunter wants to change his plea, and I guess it's to get kind of clear the decks or whatever, not cause any more problems, I assume. But I mean, that's your famous faux Russian disinformation
Sure.
thing, which I actually believe
That was Russian disinformation 2020.
right. Well, I don't know how much that affected the 2020 election, but you didn't take many votes to affect the election.
I heard that the figure was ridiculous. It was like 84% of independents would have switched.
Are you
their vote.
serious? They
Yeah.
would have switched their vote over that.
It would have been that substantial. Yeah.
I can think is part of rigging an election. It's a conspiracy to rig an election.
Hello. You coming over to my side now,
No,
Bruce?
No, because when I see Tucker Carlson showing the Viking Man storming through the broken door and a cracked window of the Capitol, and he's trying to portray that as waltzing through a guided tour of the Capitol. No, that's disinformation too. But yeah, I mean, that's a horrible thing that happened, and the FBI lied about it. They knew about it. Here's an Elise Stefanik PolitiFact. Well, did PolitiFact find that was true? That the 53%. So I don't know. 53% would have changed their votes. But PolitiFact's left leaning, and I think they're trying to debunk that. So what is it? How many? You didn't need too many.
And that's
37% of the total, I guess.
Yeah, and that's 53%, but that's the voters. But that's it was independents, I believe, was 84%.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, it didn't take too many.
No,
that's to flip a couple of
43,000, I think was the
amount. Yeah,
that would have flipped it.
Yeah. So meantime, Chuck Schumer is trying to make sure that we load the dice a little bit too. I couldn't believe that was this just today that he came out with this. He spoke about that we had to make the illegal citizens. I mean, I thought they were tacking back towards the center, but they're speaking out of both sides of their mouth, which I totally understand. I don't get it. They don't seem to have a message.
Well, they're headed towards if Johnson puts the SAVE Act as part of the budget deal, they're going to have to either vote for citizenship of voter registrations or shut the government down. So of course he's apparently they're going to have to acquiesce on that. So Schumer said, oh, well, maybe non-citizens should vote.
Yeah, that's going to be a big winner in the election. Yeah, not when you've got Harrison now saying that she didn't say what she said before about illegals being criminals, and is anybody going to ask her? Let's talk about the debate real quickly, which is coming up Saturday night. I didn't realize it was on Saturday. Is that
Saturday?
right?
I thought it was Tuesday.
Wait, it's the 10th, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Tuesday.
Today's the 5th. You're right. I don't have it's Tuesday. Yeah. Oh my. If it's Tuesday, this must be Moscow.
Yeah. Well, I got to pay someone back for a hamburger.
Right. Okay. Exactly. Thank you, Wimpy. As Hawk Carlson would have said. Right. It's Tuesday night on ABC with the station of George Slopadopoulos, according to Trump. I mean, it's so juvenile, but I laughed.
It wasn't just
when he called him George Slopadopoulos, and then
it goes. I've had him up to here.
Let's see. Disney owns ABC, right? So I wonder how many of the rides at Disney World that George Slopadopoulos would qualify to ride.
Mr. Slopadopoulos' wild ride.
Yeah. By the way, my wife and I went on our honeymoon to Disney World, and it was so long ago that their Epcot was still just a dream.
What?
And the first ride we went on was Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, which that was about all I can handle. I mean, I couldn't handle anything more herky jerky. And of course, I was bored out of my mind from It's a Small World, which she loved. The marriage was off to a rocky start. Let's put it that way. But no, it was very nice, and we're still very fond of having been at Disney.
So, what anniversary did you finally get that song out of your head?
It's still there. Fortunately, it crowded out "Love Will Keep Us Together" by the Captain and Tennille, which was the song the year that we got married, which shows how long we've been around. Wow. But yeah, so Harris and Trump now, so with that debate, they finally did agree to what they had agreed to in the beginning, which was the mics are going to be off when they're not talking, which redounds to the advantage of President Trump, because he won't put his foot in his mouth while she's trying to say nothing.
There's also going to be an audience.
Oh, well, that's a little different.
Yeah, that is a little different. It's going to be a small audience, but there is going to be an audience. I wonder how they're going to pick them.
Now, I remember being in the audience for the Jim Conway show on Channel 9 about 60 years ago. Okay. And because they shipped a busload of us, not unlike the residents of Massachusetts who were shipped in buses to New Hampshire to cheer on Kamala Harris. So it was really,
and then stranded, and then they stranded them there.
Those were those big yellow buses. I mean, those weren't like school buses. Those were, Greyhound, leave the driving to us. Gigantic buses. So what they had to import. They had to import these people from Massachusetts because they couldn't get enough New Hampshireans.
Apparently,
yeah. Okay. So anyway, there was the Jim Conway show. He was a local talk show host, and he came up to us, maybe like 10 of us from the school, and he says, well, "What you do is when you applaud real fast and hard, because that gives the illusion of a people in the audience." So that was one of the first tricks of showbiz that I learned.
Didn't want a golf club.
Oh no, and real hard and very quick. So for those of you youngsters,
someone should coach Gutfeld's audience on that one.
Are they bad? Are they bad?
It sounds like the old days when the cameraman would be laughing.
Well, they need like Hank Kingsley to get out there in front have the applesauce joke, applause sign, and teach them what to do. You got to warm up these audiences, or at least get James Taylor to come out and do a song, because the poor guy didn't get to do his number at the DNC. Just somebody to warm up the audience there. So speaking of show business, Bill, finally, George Clooney actually had the chutzpah. He writes this op-ed at the behest of Barack Obama. I mean, he's taking orders from the top.
Sure.
And then he, I guess, under direction from his leader, was told to praise Biden's selfless act. I mean, wow. He was pushed out like in Game of Thrones when Tommen wasn't pushed out, was he? He just jumped. But it was like he really had no choice. He was pushed out. Everybody knows that. This was not some selfless act. Am I being gaslit yet again? I think so. Right?
Well, it's it kind of like Caesar voluntarily resigned.
Right.
He took the knives willingly.
Yeah, A2 Clooney. Yeah. Right.
But speaking of selfless acts, I think Amal Clooney's should be praised for her selfless act of pretending he's straight.
There's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Yeah, George. I mean, and I've liked some of his movies. Oceans. I didn't like all the Oceans, but 11 was pretty good. Julia.
I don't like Clooney himself, but I like his manager, because his manager's made sure that he's only been in good movies. I hate to say it. There's nothing I've never seen a George Clooney tent pole that I did not enjoy.
There you go. Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap.
And let me say, every person in our nation has benefited from that work. Everywhere I go, I tell people, look, you may not be a union member. You better thank a union member for the 5-day work week. You better thank a union member for sick leave. You better thank a union member for paid leave. You better thank a union member for vacation time.
Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap. I confess, Tim, that I hate Gaper's blocks. I can't stand to look at this stuff. So I haven't even listened to Kamala's fake accent. Is it a bad Southern accent? Or?
Well, if there was ever any doubt that she was Canadian, she proved it.
Yeah, hey there, you all.
It's oh my gosh! If I tried to talk like if I were to talk like she did, I would be accused of being racist.
Sure. So I mean, when I think of great fake Southern accents, cringeworthy ones, I'm thinking of Hillary Clinton, of course, did that. And
I ain't
Joe
no
Biden
ways tired.
Right. And Joe Biden, they're going to put you all back in chains. So
well, this one,
among those
this one, if you listen to it, it sounds like she's got Obama coaching her, because that's exactly what it sounded like. She was trying to do an Obama speech. If you got a 4-day weekend, you better thank a union.
Well, I loved when Obama used to throw in the word folks.
Yeah.
Literally trying to be folksy. Just I remember when I was in 7th grade, we learned all these propaganda devices, and one of them was plain folks. And the illustration back then was Adlai Stevenson getting caught with a hole in his shoe, which was a rigged photograph, I believe, just to show that he was plain. Just like everybody else, he wasn't some intellectual. Meantime, was it Adlai Stevenson, or I might be confusing it with somebody else, because all those lefties back then are kind of a blur. But one of them had purported to be an intellectual, but when he died, they found that all that was next to him on the bed was a social register. He didn't read any books. So I don't know if that was Adlai Stevenson or somebody else, but yeah, just lump them all together. But anyway, that's a plain folks thing. Literally, you throw the word folks in. I mean, it's so cringy.
Something sounds very, I can't put my finger on it, but something sounds very communist. It sounds like a very communist word, folks. It's like workers. And
Sure.
you know what I mean? It just folks.
Yeah.
We are.
Yeah. No, I'm pretty suspicious of people who use folks.
And I can't remember the last time I had a pair of shoes that I've worn a hole in. Like shoes don't get holes. Shoes don't get holes in them anymore, do they?
This was the 50s. Okay.
Right. Right. But why don't shoes get holes in anymore? Is that technology?
People just aren't walking around anymore. If you've noticed the obesity epidemic right now, Ozempic. Hey, is Ozempic really curing? I know people who use Ozempic, and I'm kind of angry because it's like an unfair advantage. And you're only supposed to take it if you're obese, right? You're not supposed to take it if you just want to lose 10 pounds.
Well, it's supposed to be for diabetics. I mean, it's
right.
It manages your blood sugar.
Yeah. So you can't just take it if you're not a diabetic, right?
Well, a lot of people are, but there's another one. It's Monora or something like that. I know I'm ruining the name. That's actually it does the same thing, but it's just for weight loss.
Well, I think that is the one where it lasts for 8 days. If I'm not oh no, wait, that's a Monora. Excuse me. I'm getting, oh my goodness. I'm almost as dumb a Jew as Doug Emhoff. Oh, I love that guy. Yeah. Got the Hanukkah story wrong and they had to delete the tweet.
I learned something. I guess we got time. It's kind of disgusting because we were listening to the it was Jardiance specifically, and we were listening to the warnings, and one of them stood out for my wife. She said, "A fatal split in your perineum." And I had to look it up, and son of a gun, yeah, is that Jardiance can cause a split in the perineum.
Ouch.
that could be fatal.
Ouch.
Yeah.
That hurts. That hurts. Okay. What do you take that for?
Same thing. It's one small pill with a great big story to tell. It's like Ozempic, but it's just one pill. You don't have to, it doesn't need the needle, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what happens is, are you curious why it could cause a fatal split? What it does is it causes your kidneys to extract sugar. And so your urine is really, really sweet, and that can cause a bacterial infection if you don't wash under there enough. That can actually, if you're constipated, can start a little rip that gets infected. And
but now I'm intrigued by sweet urine. Does McDonald's? Well, at McDonald's, do you want the plain urine or the sweet urine? Okay. Yeah, right. Okay.
Yeah.
See, I just don't
Jardiance is really swell. I just pee in my coffee and no one can tell.
Yeah, I just don't like the idea of people being able to see. I always thought I had that advantage over, the morbidly obese. And if they could just even the playing field, with a simple pill.
Well, I always felt that about smokers. I mean, that's how I think half of Hollywood stays so thin. The ones that don't do the liposuction or the bulimia, they're all smokers. I mean, that's
well, they got to. I mean, they got to. I mean, it's for their career. I totally understand that. It's like every so often you see a picture on Twitter, and it's, look how fit everybody was at the turn of the 20th century. And everybody's walking around and there's not anything hanging over a belt. And it's because they all smoked. They didn't eat.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, sure. So they were dead by the time they were 50, and it wasn't. Yeah.
But they were pretty when they died.
They were fairly pretty. So then there's this, how I always fall for the fake memes. The best one, I think, was the one that had Kyle Rittenhouse looking like a big boy with the swooping hair and the gut. I was like, well, boy, the kids put on a weight. And no, so the latest one, and I knew this right from the beginning. There it is, Tiger Woods. And this guy posts this, and it's Tiger Woods next to Kamala. And it's Kamala's fake black accent is embarrassing and extremely offensive. Quote Tiger Woods. Well, I know Tiger, and he wouldn't say anything like that. I mean, he golfed with Trump, but
Sure.
and he might believe that, but he isn't going to say it. So I caught that.
But he would have the right to say it because he's a half black versus a quarter black.
Sure. Yeah. Who's more black? Who's got more black cred? Well, she's only a quarter black.
Yeah.
Wait.
Yeah,
Speaking of quarter blacks, Patrick Mahomes is half black, right? He's a half black, quarter black, I think, right? Is Patrick Mahomes one of his mother? I think is white, if I'm not mistaken.
Is he a quarter black too?
I think he's a half black.
Okay.
Well, but that's how versatile he is, because he runs around like a half black, but he can throw like a quarter black. Anyway, so wait, Kamala. Wait, I thought she was half Jamaican.
You're going to get us canceled with that kind of talk, Bruce.
Seriously, this is the one. The totally innocent one is the one that'll get us canceled. And by the way, Mahomes' wife is a big Trump supporter. Did you know that? Yeah, she's been outspoken about it. And I'm wondering now, Taylor Swift is a liberal, and she's dating Travis Kelce. So does that trump
maybe
Mahomes?
Maybe have you not heard
I've
the
heard
news?
that they may be breaking up September 28th.
Apparently
I can't believe that I know that date.
Apparently that's what's in the contract.
Well, wait a minute. I mean, there's a contract for them to break up at a certain specified date.
Well, yeah,
that's
you got
awfully
to
romantic.
You got to have a termination point of the contract.
I guess so. Well, foolish me.
It's you think Katie Holmes? You think Katie Holmes went into that one without an out?
I'm you know how naive I am. I fell for Kyle Rittenhouse as the big boy. So it's Taylor Swift, and you have to think with that caveat, especially if she's not going to be with Travis Kelce, even though he says it's false. But let's put that into the hopper. Does her endorsement of, I assume she's in favor of Kamala Harris, she's very liberal. Does her endorsement of the left trump Mahomes' wife? I mean, Taylor's only going out with a tight end. Insert joke here.
So was Katie Holmes, I heard.
Yeah. But if Taylor, I'm just trying to think who has more weight with the populace, especially in Kansas City. Mahomes' wife, full-throated support for Trump, but Taylor Swift dating the tight end, it was not as important. This is an important question.
Well, here's the thing. I don't think they keep saying that Taylor Swift is going to come out and endorse Kamala, but she doesn't. I mean, they did that whole Soldier Field trick, if you remember.
Oh yeah,
where they booked Soldier Field and didn't say why. And so that Taylor Swift has not come out and endorsed Kamala, and I don't think she will. Because
there is a certain amount of weight that,
Here's the thing: she's selling out arenas, but the guy that's driving all the little girls to the arena,
exactly,
is not going to do it.
That'd be an interesting fight.
I'm not taking you to see that communist.
I think you got something to say. So Alex Thompson, this guy, had a really great tweet. It was about Kamala and whether she would have to actually veto, once she was the president, this bill regarding electric vehicles that she was the original co-sponsor on in the Senate. And I was thinking, is this a situation like Kerry, where she was for it before she was against it? And that did him in 2004. So I'm just...
It's kind of like that Red Sox player who they canceled the game, and by the time they replayed it, he was already switched teams. So he had to actually play that against the team he was on.
Absolutely. And Harry Cheedy was once traded for himself. He was the player to be named later in a Cubs trade years ago. Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap.
Maybe I'm being a little hyperbolic, maybe. But I told him, maybe trying to provoke him a little bit, that I thought Churchill was the chief villain of the Second World War. Now, he didn't kill the most people. He didn't commit the most atrocities. But I believe, and I think when you really get into it and tell the story right and don't leave anything out, you see that he was primarily responsible for that war becoming what it did, becoming something other than an invasion of Poland. Or just, at every step of the way, like, people are very often, I find, surprised to learn. There's a two-step process.
Well, why don't you just make the case for that? Okay, so you've made your statement. A lot of people are thinking, well, wait a second. You said Churchill, my childhood hero, the guy with the cigar.
Yeah. Well, and the next thought that comes into their head is that, oh, you're saying Churchill was the chief villain, therefore his enemies, Adolf Hitler and so forth, were
Stalin,
the protagonists, right?
Yeah.
They're the good guys if you think he's a villain. That's not the case. That's not what I'm saying.
Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the weekly wrap. I just want to tell you something, Tim, so you know everything that goes on with this show. I never listen to the tapes, ahead of time. I like to intuit things, i.e. I'm lazy.
Sure.
But Chris had written on the rundown. This is the whole Tucker thing with that Nazi apologist that he had on the other day. And on the rundown, it says it was Churchill's fault. And Chris writes, the actual clip, not Bruce reading about it on Twitter. The implication being that I'm just unfairly engaging in a calumny, a slander, a libel against this professional historian. And I actually went ahead and watched the clip, and it's nothing that that I hadn't heard before. One of the problems is it's nothing that I haven't heard, and the world hasn't heard for the last 80 years. I actually remember a class I had at Northwestern 50 years. It's 50 years ago, a British history class. I remember the name of the professor. I think it was Professor Hayek, not Hayek. And he had us read, I have the historian's name wrong, but I think I have it, A.J.P. Taylor. And this guy wrote about, and it seemed to make sense. It was rational. There were so many opportunities to appease Hitler. There were everybody, we just blew it. He didn't really want to take over. And so, you read it and it's like, yeah, especially you're a credulous college student. And the professor just said afterwards, and remember that you always think of professors as Marxists and always on the other side or whatever. But he said, yeah, the one thing the guy left out was that Hitler was nuts, and that he was a madman. And this guy what
just occurred to me, Bruce, is that we're now closer. Right. We're about the same distance from you hearing that in class in World War I as when you heard it in class.
Right. No,
it's World War II was closer in history when you.
I was born. Look, I was born 8 years after the concentration camps were liberated, and if you don't think that's had an effect on me, it has, because and you think it's that's a long time ago when back then, but now it seems like it was the day after. Here's the thing.
I was thinking that when I watched Hogan's Heroes it seemed like ancient history that they were making.
Well, that's why they were able to joke about it, because they were saying it was ancient history, and to a lot of people it really wasn't, and they actually were offended by that. But Bob Crane got his just desserts, didn't he? So
the distance between Hogan's Heroes and World War II is pretty much the distance between now and 2004.
No, right? It's nothing. It's zip. So I know nothing. But anyway, this kind of thing has been said over and over and over again. This is not new stuff. And then Tucker sits there with his typical, oh, wow, this is fascinating stuff. And I'm just asking questions. And he's just trying to twist the knife in. And it's ridiculous. And it's of a piece with everything else. We even had a reference to it in the first segment about how the Russians disinformation experts thought he was over the top. I mean, what an insult. So that's the thing, and it just bugged me, because there were other clips that could have been used. I think there was a clip where the guy talks about how the Hitler said he was pleading to the Allies, I've just got this problem. You got too many millions of people. I'm overstocked. I've got a Jewish problem here. A problem? See, I mean, if you put it in, I would put it in terms of Auschwitz, Bergen-Belsen, Treblinka, Dachau. I'm missing one right now off the top of my head. I mean, it was not a problem. You know, they didn't need to round up Jews unless they hated Jews. And you know, but I'm not. Hitler was evil, but look, there's one guy that I give a pass on for anything remotely resembling an apology for Hitler, and that's Bobby Hull. And the only reason is because also a wife beater and a drunk, the trifecta. Because I went with my dad to see Bobby Hull score tons of goals, and I wouldn't even let Bobby Hull take Bobby Hull from me. But Chris is a little expendable to me, even though he does a great show. He's a great guy, and he's breaking my heart right now. But okay, we'll let it go. Do you have anything to say on your own behalf here, Chris? We have a little texting exchange, and he said he doesn't even watch Tucker that much anymore. Okay, fine. What
I don't.
I
used to watch the fact show. I don't watch all the stuff that's on Twitter.
Right.
All I said is I watched the clip, and the guy makes the point that after taking Poland, that Hitler wanted nothing to do with Russia, and that he tried to do peace talks with Churchill, and Churchill didn't want to, so Churchill exacerbated the killings. And that they had all these people rounded up, not just the Jews, the prisoners of wars, and they had no way to feed them and house them. So people were dying of starvation and stuff that they had that he wanted to.
That's one. I mean, and I think, you know, I'm not a historian, but I think that could be roundly debunked and has been over the years. And if Tucker, you know, Tucker's a pretty smart guy. He doesn't have to sit there and just nod his head. He could read some history and deal with that. But, you know, they're always trying to make it like, and of course, this guy characterized Churchill as the villain. And, he's trying to have it both ways. Oh, Hitler's evil, but Churchill's the villain. Well, Hitler's evil, Churchill's the villain. I mean, you kind of, I mean, how many villains can you have? I guess Churchill could be the villain too. I don't think so. You know, that Barack Obama took out the bust of Churchill from the Oval Office, I think it was in. You know who put it back in? Donald Trump. Okay. And you know who took it out again? Joe Biden.
Well,
think about that. It'll be interesting.
I don't think he could have lifted it.
It'll be interesting when Slobodopoulous or whoever is doing the debate asks, well, what do you think at the convention? You had Tucker Carlson, who kind of nods his head over Churchill being the villain, speaking at your convention, but you had a bust of Churchill in the Oval Office. What do you think about that, Mr. Trump? That's when Trump's going to want his own mic to be off, I think.
But remember, Tucker calls Churchill a childhood hero, a hero since childhood as well.
Yes, but no longer. He's willing to. He didn't argue with the guy. I mean, I mean, first of all, I mean, probably shouldn't have had him on because it's this. Like I say, this is not new stuff. This, you know, this guy isn't original. This kind of garbage has been brought up for years, and we've heard the argument, and it's been debunked over and over again. And of course, you could have had a clip where it's, oh, it's the Jewish problem. How did the Jewish problem exist in the first place? I mean, you know, I'm sure Tucker, for his next act, will side with Hamas. He'll figure out a way to do that. Which, by the way, this is just in like the day we're recording this. Apparently, because through Axios, which is the public relations arm of the Biden White House, when they want to talk about Israel, apparently they're not blaming Netanyahu and Israel anymore for not agreeing to peace terms. But, you know, they wanted to rile up the populace of Israel and get everybody against Netanyahu. But Israel was agreeing to some terms, you know, over and over and over again, as Netanyahu said, and Hamas doesn't want it. They don't want it. And people just, they always want to, you know, there's another, if you really wanted to, you could actually blame the Jews for their own demise. I actually, in the Holocaust, I read this book, Viktor Frankl wrote Man's Search for Meaning. I've read it 7 times. It's a very inspirational book. His whole family was wiped out in the Holocaust, and he was in Auschwitz. What did he have to live for? And it's the whole basis of his book is man will find a way to persist, to live, if he has a reason, a why in order to live. He can put up with just about any how. And he was He mentioned this because there was like a guy, a doctor, smart guy who was in Auschwitz with him, who had put a deadline on the liberation of the camps. And he had put a deadline in his head. If we're out by March, I'm going to stick it out through March, and we'll get out. And you know, so I'm gonna live with this. And of course, they weren't liberated then. It was like not but long afterwards that they were liberated. But he died, and he died of typhus, which a lot of people, you know, a lot of people in the camps didn't die. They weren't gassed. They died of they died of typhus. But as Frankel says, yeah, that was the official cause of death. But what they really died was they died for a lack of hope. So yeah, but so if you want to blame the Jews for not hoping at that point, but I mean, you could always, but I mean, there is a lot of truth to that. So yeah, Bobby Hull, that's about it. He's about the only apologist, close thing to an apologist to Hitler that I can find. But yeah, so yeah, this is Bruce's Jews News. Okay, an extended version today, and we'll be back with more fun and frivolity. Bruce Wolf and Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap.
For you?
Yeah, Shefty, we obviously know the NFL is very bullish and excited about global expansion, evidenced by, you know, this marquee game on Friday night between the Packers and the Eagles in Brazil. And while some of the players are like very excited about the actual game itself, Darius Slay had this to say about actually playing in Brazil.
True. Week 1, I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait. But, man, I do not want to go to Brazil. You want to know why? I'm here to tell you why. They already told us not to leave the hotel. They told us we can't do too much going on because the crime rate is crazy. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, NFL, why y'all want to send us somewhere with the crime rate this high and like we out the country? So, you know, the first thing people think is like something terrible can possibly happen.
Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap. So they're playing this game in Brazil, scheduled for Friday night. Eagles and the Packers. My fantasy team, I drafted Jordan Love of the Packers. So I was just wondering if Jordan Love is pilloried by the Brazilians, taken out, do I get to substitute for him? That's what I want to know in my fantasy draft.
What I want to know is how the heck are you going to follow that game with them not being able to use Twitter?
Well, not only that, because it's on Peacock, which I am not paying for to watch this game. Last year for the playoff game, I think it was Cincinnati and Kansas City. Who was it? I think the game was in Cincinnati, if I'm not mistaken. It was like 20 degrees below zero. Nobody moved the ball the entire game. One of the most boring playoff games you ever saw in your life. And I had to pay for it and extra. And so I'm not buying that. For me, it's enough to have watched the first game of the season.
How'd you have to pay extra for it? Did you have to get Peacock for a month or?
Well, you had to get Peacock. You had to get Peacock
for a month, and that's
and the Bears. I'm actually going to be giving up. I would normally be playing golf on Sunday, but there's been so much hype for Caleb Williams of the Bears. I've been following the Bears for these many decades, and I have never seen more hype for a guy. And I just want to see what happens when they should beat the Tennessee Titans at Soldier Field. You don't care one whit for this, right?
I'm still wondering if it's going to be Taylor Swift or Beyonce at Soldier Field.
Right. So, and my question is, who is going to be the bigger success? Caleb Williams on the field or Tom Brady? Analyst job in the NFL. They got rid of a good guy, Greg Olson, and they demoted him. And so Brady, and Brady hasn't done a game yet. Now I understand this is how much he pays attention to detail, that he's already practiced with Kevin Burkhardt of Fox, that they did like a full season's worth of exhibition games to practice. I mean, no wonder. I mean, I understand the guy has talent. And Tim, maybe you've worked at your craft for all these decades as hard as these guys have, but I never worked this hard. And I just like, with me, it was always like, how can I figure out how to do the job with the least amount of work and get by? And like, you know, like I was saying that I went to Northwestern before. When I went there, I tried, like, one year, I saw that there were 2 classes where they were going to assign to read Candide, which was only 100 pages. So for 2 classes, I got to read Candide but that's the kind of strategy I would employ. I didn't want to dig in and work at my craft.
That's why you're so bitter about
television.
That's why you're so bitter about Don Lemon.
Exactly.
He turns down
he got
assignments
away with it more than I did.
You're like, I didn't know I could do that.
I couldn't. I couldn't get away with that. But you know, so, you know, hats off to him. But sure, yeah, you get into TV, right? Because it's so superficial. I mean, and ultimately boring. But, you know, you throw in a boom shakalaka, a ding dong dilly of a dinger, you got yourself a sportscast. I mean, this Brady, I mean, he's taking it so, and probably, I mean, he's got to be one of the smartest guys around to talk about the NFL. I've seen clips of him, and I know you don't care about this, but you care about people really executing their craft well.
Sure.
And he knows what's going on. When he went out to the field, yeah, the play had been called, but he was watching everything. He knew how to, you know, to get the call an audible, change the play at the line of scrimmage, whatever. I think the big thing for him is he's only got a certain amount of time to talk about this stuff because you know, then the next play is coming up. And is he going to be able to diagram it, illustrate it, talk about it, and make it so it's understandable to people? Because these guys are never, they start talking to the jargon, and you don't know what they mean. So it'll be interesting if he can do it.
Yeah, I hope your expectations are not deflated.
I don't have any. I will be watching to see how he does. And by the way, and I don't begrudge him making a ton of money. The guy, of course, who gets me upset is Tony Romo, because he came on with CBS, and a few years ago he had a streak where it was like he was predicting all the plays, and it just coincided with his Chris said, I got the joke, Tim. I think I elided right over that. I want to give it its due.
That's okay. That's okay.
Oh,
that's okay.
Deflategate. No. It was
everyone,
a Deflategate
everyone
joke.
else got it, Bruce. It doesn't matter. It's
gosh, it was a Deflategate. I'm thinking, does Giselle Bundchen have breast implants that went off or something? No, it was Deflategate. Okay, all right. Yeah, there we go. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So Romo,
some of these are just due for me.
Also, you tricked me because, I don't care about this. I don't care about football. You know, I'm in a seat, whatever. Don't even ask me about Jared Goff and the Lions because I don't care about it. And then you throw a Deflategate reference at me, which is almost as old as John Kerry's. I was against it before I was for it. All right. So Tony Romo is, it coincides with his contract being up. And he's predicting all the plays. He's fantastic. So they give him like $20 million a year. And the guy uses the word especially, and it doesn't seem really prepared. And he's really been a flop the last several years, but he still gets his $20 million a year. Article. Even CBS has reportedly tried to get Tony Romo to care more about his announcing job. He cared at the right time. That's what happened. So speaking of announcers, and I know you don't care about this, but I'm gonna double down on this. So a tweet from Mike North, who, by the way, did a creditable job. We missed you last week, but he did a creditable job of talking. You know what the ratio of how much I talk to you talk on this show? Flip it. Flip it for when, it was great. He was great. So anyway, he tweeted that Steve Stone said the White Sox could play with anybody, and it's just and Mike took issue with that. I mean, the White Sox, who did win, and we're recording this Thursday night, they did win last night, breaking a 12-game losing streak, and they're about to become the worst team in the history of baseball. But Steve Stone, to say that the White Sox can play with anybody, I mean, Steve, do you really need to blow your credibility on the? I mean, there's no need to Tucker Carlson, Vladimir Putin shill it like you just did right there. And you know, Stone's a guy who predicts things a lot too, and is very, very.
So
good
how long was their last losing streak? Was it?
Well, they had a 21-game losing streak this year.
21 game. Okay.
But they've like won like 6 out of their last 41. I mean, it's awful. It's there was the Babylon Bee, I think, had a story that in a picture, and it showed White Sox players to be allowed to use tees to tee off, you know, like it's T-ball. It was pretty. It was almost as good as years ago. The Onion had one about the Sox had this player named Adam Dunn and he was hitting like about 100, and they said. Adam Dunn to be relegated to baseball participant, not a player. So, yeah, this, and I think it's actually immoral to watch the White Sox. It's like a gaper's block. It's not nice. A lot of these guys shouldn't actually even be in the major leagues. And I remember when my kids used to watch the first round of American Idol, and we sometimes on Fox on Channel 32 have some of the local people who were in the first round on and who'd been, you know, pilloried by Simon, and these people were like dim-witted. It wasn't funny. It was just, and the Sox aren't either. I mean, it's kind of pathetic. I mean,
yeah, it's making fun of the kids on the
it's
short
almost
bus.
as pathetic as, yeah, it's almost as pathetic as guys on a little listen to podcast arguing, having philosophical differences, like they're some sort of garage band, you know. But it's a great garage band. All right, Tim, any final words here?
No, that's it. I'm going to be in Bolingbrook next weekend, so I'm going to be at CG's Comedy. So,
and the Live Golf Tournament is going to be in the.
More reason to come out to CG's Comedy in Bolingbrook.
That's great. Yeah. Live Golf Tournament. All right. And you. Okay. Chris, I mean, where are we at the time? I've lost time.
I got 10:44.
10:44. Eastern or Central?
Yeah.
But anyway. Okay. 30 seconds of vamping here. 29, 28. What's that behind you right now? Oh, what? Yeah.
It's the Onion Dome. I don't know if you heard the story about Donald Trump. Is apparently he claims when he met with Putin, is that he said he goes, I love the buildings in Russia. I love those big things on top of the towers. What do you call those? And Putin goes, Onion Domes. He goes, yeah, that's right. That's what I'm going to bomb first. And he goes, Mr. President, those are churches. He goes, yeah, I know. That's what I'm going to bomb first.
All right. And they say he admires Putin. He's a warmonger. Bruce Wolf, Tim Slagle on the Weekly Wrap.
And that's the Weekly Wrap on radio and television. Follow Bruce at Bruce Wolf Shy on Twitter and Tim at timslagle.com. The Weekly Wrap with Bruce Wolf, a CP Pods production.